there, welcome back to another show. Today I'm going to talk about The Long Walk, which was a film based on a Stephen King novel that was written in the late 60s, early 70s, was not released till later when King actually had been published under his own name, and it was under the name Richard Bachman. So basically, King released his first 4 books he'd written that had not been published, which include The Long Walk and The Running Man, as well as one called Rage, which was about a school shooter, which is no longer in publication. There was another one I can't remember the name of. But these are the books that King started writing, and then he didn't get anywhere, and he moved into horror, and that's where he started to get a career going. But The Running Man and The Long Walk were both very good books. It's one of those things, is like, when you read them, it's like, why did these not get published? They're one of those great examples of anyone trying in the publishing industry is like, yeah, you can write good stuff and still not get published. It's just one of those things you just have to be aware of. It's as an industry. So he wrote these books. They got published eventually under the Bachman books. Running Man was quickly bought up and made into a terrible film, which I've covered recently. It's going to get a remake soon. And King went on with his career. And The Long Walk was one of those films that kept on getting brought up as a George Romero project. Then there was other people involved and other people involved. It was always one of those films that was always like, it probably never happened because it's just too depressing, and it has to be done at a certain budget to be kind of, allowed to be done. It needed to have some budget for what the story is, but it couldn't be too high a budget because it's too depressing. So eventually, I think Lionsgate produced it, and they'd done all the Hunger Game movies, and they hired Francis Lawrence, who had done quite a lot of the Hunger Game films, as well as other stuff like Red Sparrow and Constantine, a bunch of other films. So he was like brought in to direct it. The director of Strange Darling, which had problems with, was a writer for it as well, and eventually it got made with Cooper Hoffman as the lead and David Johansen, I guess his surname, from Alien Romulus, another lead. So they actually finally got it made and released, and it came out and did exactly what everyone feared it would do, which is it did okay, but the budget was so low that it'll eke out a decent profit because it's been well received critically. It's did okay financially. It's not like a mega hit, but it's doing okay. It's one of those ones that'll keep going, and we hit digital and going around. It's obviously you have to really mess it up for it to lose money. So finally, after 40 odd years, the film has been made of this book, and it's a good film. That's the big thing. Is it's nicely impressive, especially since I have read the book. I read the book when I was a teenager, when I was reading a lot of Stephen King books, and this one was one of the ones that stuck out to me as a really good book. But it's also one of those things, you read the book and think, it doesn't need to be a film. It really doesn't. It works well as a book. You don't need... It's the same with any book. No book needs to be a film. They seem to have this thing nowadays where it's like, for a book to really have purpose, it needs to be a big film adaptation of it. And it's like, no, you don't. It's like, you can read a book. Most people can read books if they put the effort in. A lot of people are lazy and don't do it. They'd rather just watch the film. But you can read books. It's allowed still. So, The Running Man was a different case, where Running Man actually was made it a terrible film. And it was like, it's one of those ones where... It's one of those films that could easily put a writer off from selling any more than novels for the big screen adaptation. Because it's like, The Running Man was so bad. The Running Man was terrible. So, there was that problem. But The Long Walk is actually a good version of what it needs to be for an adaptation. And there's going to be a new Running Man coming out later on this year, which I'm looking forward to. It's quite weird that the 2 films from the same book of novels that couldn't get initially published are both coming out this year. The Running Man's a bigger budget film. I don't think it's going to be as good as this one though. because it has been more of an action movie, and this one is much more of a character piece, and it sticks to its premise and is like, and it works very well because it just sticks to what it needs to do. So the premise is basically we're in a war, a post-war environment where there's been a war. America has lost a lot of its resources, and it's a fascist state. You know, so it's not that it's a few years from now. There's not been no big war in America, but it's obviously a lot of problems, and so it's a very timely film. Now the film was made before Donald Trump came back into office, so they didn't know who was going to win the election when they made the film. But it's just a general idea of a dystopian future. Things have gotten bad. This was released, I think, because it's post-COVID and everyone's economies had crashed. Maybe that's why they thought this could be a good, timely film to make. So, the film is about a kind of depressing time that we can all, get behind. And it's about once a year, for the last 20 years, once a year, there's been this thing called the Long Walk. And basically, as is like, in the book is 100 people, but in the film it's 50 to make it more manageable. 50 people have to walk through a variety of states, starting off in Maine, and they're going to keep on walking until there's only one left. And if you fall, you die. You get shot and you're dead. So you're going to get lots of money if you survive. But if you survive, you get a wish and you get a lot of money. So it's kind of like the most brutal version of the lottery. And if you think that's a bit ridiculous, look how popular Squid Games was during COVID and then after COVID. People have a bloodlust when times are tough. And in any dictatorship, things you think is ridiculous suddenly become normal. So this Long Walk, well, it seems ridiculous, but you look at what the Romans did and what human beings have done throughout time, it's no more ridiculous than stuff that has happened. And this is just like only a small percentage of the population do it. So it's not like a full on mass murder like the Purge. So the Long Walk is basically them walking from Maine onwards. And no one expects anyone to make it very far. The idea is because you can't stop and sleep, you have to keep on walking. Eventually, if your shoes develop a fault, that's your problem. If your ankles go, then you're dead. Any problems, if you have to take a crap, you have to do it on the road as you're walking. If you take a piss, the same thing. And it's just basically, the chances of surviving are very minimal. And no one should really assume they've got a chance. So the film is based about the 50 guys who are doing it. But of course you can't have 50 main characters, so there's basically 2 main characters. And they are one white, one black, and they're walking. And even from before the race starts, as they're waiting to get their numbers and waiting to get the thing started, they develop a easy kind of rapport with each other, with them and 2 others. And then as they walk together, and they watch people slowly fall away and die. The first one who dies is a kid who legs cramp up on him, and he's the youngest kid there. So they make sure they kill someone innocent and start off in the film, just so you know how brutal it is. Because they don't tell you. If you've read the book, you know what's going to happen if you fall away. But they don't tell you that in the film until you see the first one. So they kill an innocent kid, and then it's like it becomes more brutal as people start falling away. People start to lose it. If you try and run off the road, you'll get shot. If you slow down below 3 miles an hour, you get shot. You get 3 warnings, and the 3rd warning you get shot in the head, and that's it. So, and it's about your mental collapse as you do this, as you slowly realise that this is all futile, and what you thought you were walking for is ridiculous, and the people who you make as friends are becoming your enemies, and you're trying to help certain people survive at the start, And at a certain point, it becomes futile, and you start to find out what certain characters are about, why they're acting the way they are, and you start to develop like feelings with either hatred or liking for certain characters, which are slowly tested as people behave badly, people show signs, unlikable characters show signs of humanity, and show signs of why they're acting the way they are acting. And it becomes a situation where you get to know the world around them, what created these people who would actually come and do this, and what tragedies pushed them forward to do this. And it just like the word this absurd march that it goes nowhere. It's been recorded. Like no one's allowed to stand down the side of the road to watch them. If you pass a house of people watching, that's fine. But no, there's no crowds. There were crowds in the book, but for budget reasons, they don't do that. But the fact that there's no one there most of the time makes it more sparse, more existential, more just depressing. It's like nobody cares, but there's cameras watching them, showing this to the whole population, as everyone's making their own bets who's going to live, who's going to survive. And the constantly prodded by the Major, who's played by Mark Hamill, and his second Stephen King adaptation this year after Life of Chuck. But this one's much better. This one's a much stronger film. So yeah, Mark Hamill basically playing the Darth Vader of this world, the guy who's horrible, the guy who's doesn't care. He's just a monster who is in charge of this fascist dictatorship, at least the military side of it, and he's saying he's doing this to help the country, but he's just getting his kicks out of it. He does not care. And he just lets these people, like, he pushes them during the day, at night time he goes away and gets some sleep and has a shower and gets some food. And then he comes back the next day and keeps on going, and he's going to have the pleasure of shooting the last person, the last one to make it, to fall. He's got the shot to kill them. So he basically has the point of view is the first and the last death are important. The rest of these don't really matter. And yeah, he's instantly hateable, but he's just that kind of authority figure that you see in any country. Just someone who's just screwed up and horrible, and he's taken like, machoism to the extreme, and would rather just kill people than actually deal with it in any way. So that's the kind of state that is hanging over them. But the main point is these two characters who you get to know, and they become like, they see the audience surrogates as they try and help their friend, and then slowly realise their friends are falling off anyway, and innocent people who they like are dying, people are losing their minds, and it's just this senseless walk towards death. Now, it was meant to be a metaphor for Vietnam, because at the time, it was written during the Vietnam War, where lots of young men were sent off to war from different races, different backgrounds, and they just went off and were cannon fodder, no matter what their history was. They just went out there and most of them died. And this was like a metaphor for the story. But you don't even need that metaphor, you just this idea of the state just saying, these don't really matter, nobody really matters. All your struggles don't matter. It could also be a metaphor for life, as people struggle on through life, and they fall off one after another, and what does it matter at the end of the day? You know, you can read a lot of different things into it, but it's also just a simple story of these guys trying to walk, and trying to find meaning as they walk, and trying not to die, and find it more and more difficult as they go on. Now the book ends a different way. I'm not going to say how this book ends and how the film ends, but the ending is different. It's not like radically different, but it is different. But you don't really... I thought the end of the book's more haunting than the end of the film. But the end of the film's still fine. Still really well done. I just like the book ending better. But it's a wonderful film. Very well put together. I mean, Francis Lawrence, who directed it, is a good director. Sometimes the material he chooses might not be that inspired, but he tends to direct his stuff well, and it's a professional director. So you only get a good looking film, and he had a lot of good actors to fill in the story. It's well written. The novel's compressed down to a decent length, and the film doesn't outstay its welcome. I think it's almost 2 hours. It's an hour 50. So the film knows there's only, and that's including credits. The film knows basically that with this kind of idea, you can only go so long before it becomes repetitive and dulling. You need to go at a certain pace to keep the drama interesting within this very limited dramatic situation. So it knows to keep the pace up, but while also keeping it slow enough so you understand the horrors of what's going on. So it's a very well made film, so go see it while it's still available. It's still on cinemas. I'd say go see it. It is well worth seeing. So I hope you enjoyed this video. That's me for now. Right, bye.